Days after Elon Musk took charge at Twitter, there are reports that the company will prune its workforce by as much as 50%. Twitter has already laid off employees in India across engineering, sales and marketing communications teams. In an email sent to staff last evening, Twitter said that they would notify the staff of their employment status by today. Musk has already fired the Twitter board and several top executives, including the CEO and the CFO. The current economic conditions are forcing several tech giants at Silicon Valley to tighten their belts, and the Indian tech companies are not immune either. Abhishek Datta Roy decodes the new phase of tech austerity across the world.
Elon Musk, Twitter's new owner and its complaint hotline operator by his own admission, may not want to take frantic calls from employees as his company starts implementing cost-cutting measures. As per reports, Twitter plans to lay off close to 50% of its staff starting today, ticking off yet another item on Musk's to-do list. Reports of imminent layoffs have been doing the rounds ever since Musk took charge of Twitter. An internal mail addressed to employees last evening read, and I quote, "In an effort to place Twitter on a healthy path, we will go through the difficult process of reducing our global workforce," end of quote. The email also says staff members will get notices either through their company email accounts if they still have jobs or their personal email accounts if their employment is impacted. Twitter also forbade employees from discussing confidential company information on social media. Twitter is only adding to the wave of layoffs across tech companies in the Valley and across the world. A host of others, including ride-hailing app Lyft, online real estate company Opendoor, fintech companies Stripe and Chime, are also handing out pink slips. According to the San Francisco Standard's layoff tracker, more than 16,000 workers have been laid off at 138 San Francisco-based companies since January of 2022. Many of them happen to be tech companies. So why exactly is the tech ecosystem pruning its workforce, tightening its belt all of a sudden? A quick glance at emails sent to employees by some of these companies, and there is a commonality. Companies are bracing for a recession in the US, pulling out of less critical initiatives and trimming their outlook on growth prospects of the internet economy. Back home, after Byju's fired 2,500 employees in a bid to target to turn a profit by March next year, the company's founder Byju Ravindran said this is a huge price to pay for walking on the path to profitability. But this hasn't deterred the nation's largest edtech firm to announce that they've onboarded Lionel Messi as their global brand ambassador for equitable education social initiatives. The company has not disclosed how much they had to shell out to sign the football superstar. Byju's isn't the only company cutting jobs. Unacademy has laid off more than 1,000 employees. White Hat Junior, Vedantu, Lead have all announced job cuts. Even big tech is struggling. Shares of Facebook's parent, Meta, are down more than 75% from record highs. Amazon has imposed a freeze on corporate hiring as the global outlook for economic growth remains grim. The tech industry is certainly tightening its belt across the board. With Abhishek Datta Roy in Mumbai, this is Shireen Bhan.
And to take this forward, I'm joined by Scott Kessler, Global Sector Lead of Tech, Media and Telecom at Third Bridge, a primary research platform for investors. Scott, thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you, Elon Musk plans to sack at least 3,700 employees across Twitter. Now, how is this going to be taken by the courts? We believe Twitter has already been sued, and there could be legal and financial consequences for Elon Musk. What really does the employment law in the United States say about the manner in which Elon Musk is laying off employees?
Yeah, look, I'm not an employment law expert, but suffice to say that I think there are some questions about how the company is going about this in terms of communications. But suffice to say that if we've learned anything about Elon Musk over the last number of years, is that he's really focused on things like innovation and operating businesses rather than adhering to the specifics of laws that might dictate certain notice periods. And what I mean by that really is I'm assuming Twitter will move forward with their plans to reportedly cut about 50% of the headcount. And based on conversations that we've had with experts, that is something that makes a lot of sense, especially from a cost and expense perspective.
Right. I would also like to ask you, are investors also asking questions of Twitter and Elon Musk about the manner in which employees are being laid off?
Well, I think at this point, the company is privately held. So really the only investors of note are going to be folks that hold the debt. And there is a fair amount of debt on the company, especially after Musk's acquisition. I think it's 13 or 14 billion dollars in debt. And to be honest, I think a lot of investors in debt like to see cost and expense cuts. And so I don't know that they have a lot of questions about this, other than, as you said, kind of the legal ramifications and potential risks associated with those. That being said, I think in a lot of cases, the specifics in terms of notice is really what's being focused on here. And I think people are asking questions about specific state laws. I think in California, for example, where there needs to be some type of notice related to what are characterized as mass layoffs. So I'm not sure to what extent those types of communications have been provided. But like I said before, my sense is that, Musk is going to move forward with his plans and then deal with the repercussions after the fact.
All right. Also, his views and his ways to make Twitter more profitable, increase revenue. He said that Twitter users are going to be charged $8 a month for the blue tick. Do you think this will make Twitter more profitable? Because questions are being raised. If this was so easy to do, why didn't Twitter do it earlier?
That's a great question. We understand that this type of broadened subscription offering had been considered by company leadership for years. Obviously, they've rolled out Twitter Blue, their subscription offering, more recently. But the reality is that it's really a balance, right? On one hand, if you look at the daily active users, I think most recently they indicated they were about 240 million, right? So if you look at that count and say, okay, maybe 10% of people are going to pay for this subscription fee, which is $8 a month, which equates to almost $100 a year. You're talking about billions of dollars in revenue at really very little additional cost. Now, of course, there are downsides to that. And one of the downsides is that people have been complaining not just about this approach, but also about just Musk controlling Twitter and maybe easing up on some of the controls related to certain types of posts and content. And so could that negatively impact the number of people on the platform? Could that negatively impact advertiser spending? I think we've seen some indications that advertisers are pausing or pulling back. So the bottom line is, over the near term, there's the potential for some significant revenue uplift if, in fact, they're able to implement this kind of monetization of verified status. But it's unclear what the negatives associated with Musk's kind of reevaluation of content moderation will be, especially going into the key holiday shopping season where advertising is really critical.
And we have been seeing several key advertisers, several big names pulling out of Twitter. They want to see what kind of content moderation guidelines does Elon Musk really evolve for Twitter. Give us a sense of the kind of questions he and the Twitter leadership will now be asked by advertisers.
Yeah, look, it's not lost on me that Musk, I think over the last week or two, posted essentially a communication to the advertising public, basically reaching out and indicating that there's an intent to kind of maintain Twitter's vibrancy and engage with and provide value to advertisers. That being said, I think people are in fact concerned about what Musk has said previously, which is this notion of prioritization of, say, free speech versus content moderation. And I think, as you indicated, advertisers are taking more of a wait and see approach. I think they want to hear from Musk directly. I think they want to see exactly what the company does. It's not lost on me, as an aside, that as part of the reported layoff plans, I would imagine you're going to see a very, very large majority of the content moderation team at Twitter being impacted by these layoffs. And so, does the company have a plan for more algorithmic content moderation? Do they plan on outsourcing any of those efforts? And they do that right now to a large extent as well, to assist in their undertakings there. But that's a huge question, and I don't know that a lot of people have a lot of clarity on that topic, and that's why you're seeing large advertisers, I wouldn't say pulling out of Twitter, but I would say kind of pausing their spending pending further details.
Right. My final question to you, Scott, before we let you go, some of the challenges that you see for Elon Musk, many of the things that he has promised about having a super app or making the company more profitable, people have said that this is not so easy to do. Many of the things like having a blue tick subscription service, all of that has been discussed before. Give us a sense of some of the challenges that you see for Twitter going ahead.
Yeah, well, first things first, right? Excuse me. So when you have a situation where, sure, people have considered a subscription offering and monetizing verified status, the reality is that those things weren't decided on. And I think over the years, Twitter has been criticized for the lack of decisiveness from leadership. And that's definitely something that Musk is already addressing, a week or two into his ownership. In terms of broad kind of challenges, look, I think the most obvious one is one that we haven't talked about, which is this notion that the digital and social media advertising environment is in a really bad place right now to a lot of people, and that's because of a weakening global economy coupled with IDFA, which were essentially Apple's privacy changes implemented in the summer of 2021. It makes targeting and monetization that much more difficult for these companies. And so that double whammy, if you will, really puts Twitter back on its heels to try to figure out how to monetize and how to grow revenue. That's why the subscription idea makes a lot of sense. I think secondarily, look, I mean, the entire executive team is turned over. And if you believe what you read, half the employees are going to be gone relatively soon. How does the company move forward and deliver against not just intermediate term goals, but just kind of maintaining the operations of the business in a sufficient way? That's obviously an open question. But the bottom line is that there is a lot of work to do. And I think a lot of people have questions about how Musk is going to get from point A to point B.
All right. Thank you very much, Scott Kessler of Third Bridge, for joining us, giving us your view on the layoffs that have taken place at Twitter and Elon Musk's attempts to change the way Twitter functions and operates as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.